Well, the hype for the Florida State-Notre Dame game may not be exactly what we expected it to be at the beginning of the season, but we got the Heisman House here, we got Jacob Irons, Jimmy Collins. We're ready to break it down for you all on Shamrock Sports. We got to bounce Shamrock Sports right now. And welcome up to the second floor of the Duncan Student Center for Shamrock Sports. We sprinted all the way up here from outside Notre Dame Stadium. Ryan Murphy, Jacob Irons, Jimmy Collins here to preview Notre Dame's battle against Florida State this weekend. But really, we kind of expected this matchup to have more hype than it does right now. The biggest news around college football this week actually happened on Tuesday with the release of the initial college football playoff rankings. Guys, let's just start. What are your initial thoughts?
Notre Dame can't screw up, and that's about as blunt as it can be. You look here, Notre Dame's in at 10th. When we thought there could be a potential, they've moved, they've played well, they've shown they've developed, the College Football Playoff Committee still believes Notre Dame isn't that good after that NIU loss. So a 2-loss Notre Dame team, especially with the schedule they have, does not make it. While there's a plenty conversation that the Alabama team that has 2 losses is in, they will make it over Notre Dame with 2 losses. So Notre Dame can't screw up right now. That is what has to be the echoing point, that even a 1-point win against USC, a USC team that is very mid at best, could potentially jeopardize their standing. They can't screw up. They have to roll and gun the rest of the way.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I think we've known since the NIU loss that Notre Dame has to win out to be able to make the playoff, and I do still think that they're in very good standing if they are able to win these last 4 games to find themselves in the college football playoff. And one thing that I had thought of this week is Notre Dame was ranked 8th in the AP poll last week, and then after a bye was moved to 10th. And I think some Notre Dame fans were probably a little bit upset that they moved down and they fall at 10 in the college football playoff rankings, which makes me think that had Notre Dame played a game last week and was able to pick up another dominant win like they have in the past couple of games, I do think Notre Dame would be higher than 10. So I do think that Notre Dame is in very good standing in terms of being able to make the college football playoff, especially if they go 11-1.
Yeah, and if the playoff were to start this week, the committee would have Notre Dame on the road at Penn State. I believe we have a bracket there that can show you all the different matchups. Some pretty exciting ones, some interesting ones, including Indiana on the road at Tennessee. So that's the playoff would start today. But it seems like you guys are feeling very confident based on these initial rankings about Notre Dame's chances.
I do really believe Notre Dame makes it if they win out, and they win out handedly. Like I said, a 1-loss win against a 1-point win against USC could be a little challenging for them, but I do believe they're in. I think 98% if they're 11-1, they get in, as long as the ACC and the Big 12 don't get frisky. That's where I think you start to have problems, is if Iowa State comes back and wins the Big 12. Can a 2-loss BYU team that loses in the conference championship to Iowa State close, can they make it in? Then do the ponies, which are real deal, man. We're talking Kentucky ponies. Like, this SMU team is like back to when everyone talked about SMU and why they were able to get to the AAC.
Express.
The Pony Express, exactly. This is the SMU team that could very well challenge Miami in the ACC Conference Championship, which would make Miami, with how good they've played, an auto bid no matter what. They sit at like 99%. They're one of the best teams to make their conference championship, and in turn feel pretty good that they'll make the bracket overall. I feel 98% confident, but there is a potential. It's not 0 that Notre Dame falls out after going 11-1.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Notre Dame goes 11-1, there's about a 0.1% chance that they miss the playoff.
This is just so messed up.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the teams ahead of Notre Dame do play each other. Tennessee and Georgia play, Indiana and Ohio State play. So there will be losses ahead of them that will allow Notre Dame to move up if they continue winning. And I find it very, very unlikely that if Notre Dame keeps winning in their last 4 games and they continue to move up in the rankings, that they would be bumped out of the playoff come December.
So I just want to put a point on this before you jump in. We were having a debate on this in our studio, just kind of kicking back, and it came up. Can an 11-1 Notre Dame team miss a playoff? Their path to the playoff includes this weekend against Florida State. They're heavily favored. next weekend against Virginia, heavy favorites. Army at Yankee Stadium, heavy favorites, and on the road at USC. Can an 11-1 team, like they are now, miss the college football playoff?
Yes, because I just outlined it. I told you, ACC, Big 12 get frisky, and then all of a sudden, their win that's close against an Army team might not look as good. I understand Army's ranked, and it's a bad example, but Army, it's a triple option, guys. Like, I understand Daly's the real deal. It's an 86.8% chance of winning right now, as you see. Like, this is a horrible schedule. Like, you want at least a 6 on one of them. You want a 60% on one of them right now.
Got one right there.
61 at USC.
Okay, I have glasses. I can't see. But I think at this moment, it's a little tough. I have a hard time reconciling the fact if there is a potential for it. Like, I think there is. It's not 0.
You got to think of it like this, though. If Notre Dame is 11-1, they will probably be around the 6-7 mark in the rankings itself, not necessarily the seeding, depending on who wins their conference championship games. But
6 or 7?
You also have to think, for Notre Dame to miss at 11-1, that would require probably a 12-team parlay to hit with multiple underdogs, which is very unlikely. So I think Notre Dame's chances are very, very good.
And I think when you phrase it like that, it makes a lot of, your argument for not missing the playoff at 11-1 makes a lot of sense. Of course, the bigger question is whether they'll make it to 11-1. And we're kind of finding out now just how much that NIU loss hurts, because we're having this debate, and I think that's illustrative of something. Another question, which is on the minds of Notre Dame fans, we entered this season kind of thinking that Notre Dame would have a chance for a home playoff game.
The registrar's office did.
Right.
They moved final schedules. They sure thought we did.
How are you guys feeling based on those initial rankings about Notre Dame's chances for a home playoff game in December?
0. You will not see what's on your screen right now. There's no way in December Notre Dame will be hosting a home playoff game with a light show and like
guaranteed.
all the hype. There's no way. If Notre Dame hosts a home playoff game, you guys will come up with a bet and I'll do it. There's just no way. This is a committee that does not like Notre Dame. They've shown they don't like Notre Dame by putting them 10th. I understand. Everyone's like, oh my God, Notre Dame. How could they not have them host? They won't. It's an NIU loss that's bad. NIU keeps tumbling down the hill. It's bad. They won't host. They should make the playoffs, but they won't host.
Do you disagree?
I do disagree.
Okay.
I think,
oh my God, Jesus.
I think that if Notre Dame makes the playoff, I do think that they will be hosting, because they will be 11-1, and I would be surprised if they get bumped lower and lower in the rankings after being 11-1 and continuing to move up in those rankings.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe there is a bunch of chaos that lands Notre Dame the 9 seed or the 10 seed, and in that case they wouldn't. But I think it is more likely than not, if they make the college football playoff, that they will be hosting a playoff game.
Well, we do the talking. Notre Dame's going to have to do the walking this weekend when they play Florida State, 7:30 p.m. kick. Our Will Eck and Ben Rohr have the call on WVFI. They gave us a little bit of a preview of what they're going to see tomorrow night. Guys, take it away.
Thanks, Ryan. Will Eck and Ben Rohr with you in front of Touchdown Jesus. We're on the call for Notre Dame's only night game this season in South Bend. Florida State coming in, a team with high expectations coming into the year, but since then they've really cratered. What are you looking for on Saturday night?
Yeah, obviously not the top 10 matchup that was anticipated before the start of the season, but one thing that I'm really looking at is that injury to Benjamin Morrison has, caused Leonard Moore, freshman, to step up and really have to take these big reps. And this is probably his biggest test. Maybe a better team in a Navy where he comes up with that big interception in the end zone, but this is under the lights. This is at home, something that he is really yet to see, and also against a true sort of classical offense against Florida State that we haven't really seen since Louisville, where, the Seminoles have a couple of electric receivers in Douglas, Benson. These are guys that can make an impact vertically on the field, and it's going to be up to Christian Gray to now be that veteran in the cornerback room and sort of lead Leonard Moore to make some big plays.
Notre Dame coming in at number 10 in the updated college football rankings. A chance for them to continue stepping in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is winning in for the Irish. They've got to win out. Another loss, I don't see any path where the Irish get in. This is, now considered a trap game more than sort of a big game circled with the red pen on the schedule. So just another one you got to avoid, another minefield game.
Notre Dame and Florida State, WVFI. You can catch it at 7 p.m. We'll talk to you then.
Thanks, guys. Beautiful weather outside Notre Dame Stadium today. We can only hope for the same, really, tomorrow, because what happens on the field may not be pretty. At least it certainly hasn't been for Florida State all season. They enter tomorrow's game with a 1-8 record after starting the season ranked number 10 in the AP poll. Jimmy, what's gone wrong for Florida State this year?
I'm going to put it as simple as possible, and the answer is everything.
Yeah.
Since Florida State was left out of the college football playoff, in my opinion, deservedly so, last season, they've gone 1-9, including a 63-3 loss against Georgia in the Orange Bowl, which almost looked like they had just given up. Like, they were so deflated after being left out of the college football playoff, losing Jordan Travis, that they had almost just given up. Well, it feels like that continued to this year, where they had losses to Boston College, Memphis, and UNC all at home as favorites. And on top of that, they've scored 20 points in a game one time since being left out of the college football playoff. And it wasn't even in the United States of America. It was in Ireland, where they scored 21 points in a loss to Georgia Tech. It really just feels like this Florida State team has quit on Mike Norvell. And I don't know if you guys have seen the videos that have been circulating. Florida State does this thing I believe at the end of practice, where they all, sprint down the field, and most of the players don't even do it anymore. It's a really, really weird situation down in Tallahassee, and it feels like this football team has just quit.
Yeah, I think quitting is a big part of it, and I think where you can show the quit is on third down. This is a team that ranks 130th out of 137 FBS teams that you really should have a conversation with in third down conversion. They are converting 20.8% of their third downs. I have a greater chance of getting a date than what they have about getting a third down. Like, this is how bad their year has been. Like, 20%? Like, I at least shoot 30. Like, that is how bad this Florida State team is. And I really think, you talked about Mike Norvell quitting. It has been an endless spiral for them that you sit here and you're like, what can they do? They got quarterback problems. You upgrading quarterback, in my opinion. You go from Travis, who's really good, then you go grab DJU, who's shown in this own Notre Dame Stadium that he could be the quarterback. He's fallen. Then now you have to go to a backup. Then they have problems at quarterback again, and they just keep opening the door on themselves. And I think there's also got to be a conversation here, and I'm going to use the platform while I have it. Florida State has tried to get out of the ACC. They can't even handle ACC competition right now when a team is quitting on you. How are you expecting to go somewhere bigger and better? I leave that point for Mike Norvell, and I leave it for the Seminole fan base, because you are trying to destroy a premier conference by leaving when you are getting wrecked by the UNCs of the world, potentially by an SMU team that you would have never thought they would have been in the same conversation, but they are. I think Florida State's got very large issues from an administrative down problem.
Yeah, seems to be a lot of paradoxes on the Seminole side right now, and some comparisons, including to Jake Iron's dating life, that I never thought, nor Seminoles fans ever thought they would ever hear. But speaking of surprises, nothing seems to surprise Notre Dame fans, especially after the Northern Illinois loss. Guys, we know this game should be a win for Notre Dame. So we've seen games that should be a win not go their way in the past. So what do they have to do this weekend to just make sure they're not looking at another repeat?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame just has to stick to the identity that they really found after the NIU game, and that is run the ball and run the ball relentlessly. You've got Riley Leonard, along with a backfield of about 4 running backs now with Jarian Price, Jeremiah Love, Aeneas Williams, and Devin Ford. And we've also seen snaps for Keidron Young, who has looked like a very good running back as a freshman. And if Notre Dame just continues to run the ball, this Florida State defense ranks 114th in the country in rushing yards per game, allowing 4.5 yards per carry and 15 rushing touchdowns on the season. And I really just think if Notre Dame relies on the running game and doesn't force the ball down the field. And Notre Dame, their offense has begun to click where they have been able to throw the ball better. Riley Leonard looks very, very good. But I think this offense relies on the running game, and I think Notre Dame should have no problem running the ball.
And you seem to think it has less to do with what happens on the field at all, right?
I don't think it matters what you do on the field.
Yeah.
How this happens is treat them like a team. I understand. Me and Jim just sat up here and told you why you shouldn't treat them like a team. I understand that completely. Like, I get it. The numbers aren't great. Like, the statistics should show you that this should be a cupcake, that I should be having ice cream and cake by the second half. Like, that's what this game should be. But you have to treat them like a team. Marcus Freeman said after the NIU loss, no one thought we could lose. You can very well lose to Florida State. You lost to NIU. You have to understand that FSU is better talent-wise than NIU. Like, it's not even close. So to be on this situation, you need to be able to take that step up and find yourself in a position to understand that FSU can beat you. You still have to do your job and understand what you need to do to be the best team that you can be.
Yeah, but I do think if you treat them like a team, like you said, that
you run the ball.
Yes,
you run the ball.
You run the ball. They're allowing
100%.
191 rushing yards per game, and this is a Notre Dame team that I feel like when they are winning games, they don't even need to throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field, and I think you will see that tomorrow.
I agree entirely. I think the passing game has opened up, especially at Navy. We saw that. I understand people are going to be like, Navy. But it opened up a little bit for them, but they also leaned on the run. I think that's going to be interesting. But lean, run heavy. You got running backs. You got a great running back room. Let's not show the cards for what Riley Leonard worked on in the break.
Right.
Hold every card possible until you get to an oh crap moment and you got to go out and play.
Yeah. Last thought?
I do think that if Notre Dame is to not treat them like a team, like a good ACC team, I think you will see the result of that be them going away from what has worked the last 6 weeks of the season.
100%.
And you've seen Marcus Freeman harp on throughout his tenure here. It's all about consistency, consistency, consistency. Sticking to the game plan. That's the epitome of
Absolutely.
Of
Gotta be.
And we'll have our eyes on that and so much more tomorrow night. Bound to be interesting, really, no matter what happens. We'll have our game picks, our score predictions for that game coming up at the end of the show. First, Shannon Lipscomb and Avery White stopped by a little earlier today. They're going to get you caught up on all of the headlines going on around Notre Dame sports. Guys, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon Lipscomb.
And I'm Avery White, and we're here with your Friday headlines.
College basketball started this past week with 2 exciting games for the Fighting Irish. On Monday, the women came out with their 30th consecutive win in a home opener, defeating Mercyhurst 105-61. In her first game back since she tore her ACL in 2023, Olivia Miles picked up right where she left off with her 4th career triple-double, scoring 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. Liatu King, Hannah Hidalgo, and Kate Koval had strong showings as well, each with at least 17 points. The women are clearly off to a very strong start, so be sure to tune in this Sunday as they head down to West Lafayette to take on the Purdue Boilermakers.
The men were looking just as solid when they beat the Stonehill Skyhawks 89-60 this past Wednesday. Sophomore guards Marcus Burton and Braden Shrewsbury led the way with 18 points apiece, showing a glimpse of what should be a dynamic backcourt throughout the year. New addition Matt Alaco had a strong showing, finishing with 10 points and shooting 2 for 2 from beyond the arc. As a collective, the Irish had 6 players make a three-pointer, shooting 48% from deep overall. The men look to continue their sharp shooting and build on the 1-0 record this coming Monday at Purcell Pavilion versus Buffalo.
Switching over to soccer, we start with the women's team, who suffered a 2-1 loss to Florida State on Sunday, allowing the Seminoles' undefeated home streak to continue. In the second minute of the game, Florida State struck off a throw-in, beating Cassica to the post. The two battled the rest of the game, with Florida State striking again late in the second half, putting the Irish down 2-0. Notre Dame still played with fight, as freshman Izzy Engel scored in the 82nd minute. However, this push came just too late for the Irish as they fell 2-1. It wasn't all bad news, though, as Engel took home the honor of ACC Freshman of the Year. Through the regular season, Engel was tied with the conference lead in goals with Player of the Year, Cal's Charlie Lima.
Turning to the men, who also snuck their way into the ACC tournament, Wednesday night the team traveled to Palo Alto to face Stanford. After a handball in the 20th minute, Rue stepped up and drilled home the penalty kick, giving the Irish the lead. The Cardinal evened the score quickly with a goal in the 34th minute, and the score remained in the 85th minute after Stanford converted on a penalty kick from a handball in the box. With 12 seconds remaining, Notre Dame was awarded an indirect free kick from inside the area and responded with a cross from Roux, evening the score to 2-2. Then, with just 2 seconds on the clock, Stanford sent a prayer into the box, leaving Notre Dame shocked with a 3-2 loss. Take a look.
Draws level. Here's a Hail Mary of a shot that...
Both teams await to see if they will be selected to play in the NCAA tournament.
Tonight, the Notre Dame swimming and diving team will host their first ACC matchup of the season against number 7 Louisville at Rolfs Aquatic Center. This will be a tough one for the Fighting Irish, as they have already faced 3 ranked opponents to open their season, giving them a 1-3 start to the year. The Irish will look to freshman swimmer Carly Cronk, who has continued to impress. In October, Cronk won the 400 individual medley against Michigan and Wisconsin, posting a time of 4:15:53, which is the 17th fastest time in the NCAA this year. Fellow freshman Emily Kitayama, who finished second in the 200 free, and sophomore Lainey Mullins, who finished third in the 200 fly against Indiana University, will also be ones to watch.
This meet comes on the heels of a major announcement from Olympic gold medalist Chris Giuliano, who will be transferring to Texas. Giuliano was the first male varsity swimmer to qualify for the U.S. Olympic swim team, and he won gold in the men's 4x100 freestyle relay and silver in the men's 4x200 freestyle relay. Over the summer, the men's swimming team was suspended by the NCAA for 1 year following an investigation into external gambling and accusations of misconduct. The former Irish swimmer announced on social media that he would be transferring from Notre Dame to Texas, saying, "This process has been extremely difficult, but I'm excited to begin a new chapter of my life." Giuliano will swim for legendary coach Bob Bowman.
Finally, in football news, Irish head coach Marcus Freeman announced the veteran defensive end Jordan Botelho will be returning next year for a 6th season. Botelho suffered a season-ending knee injury in Notre Dame's September 14th win at Purdue.
That's all for your Friday headlines. For more coverage on Olympic sports, we hand it to Kian Bagenstos for a take on Notre Dame's hockey team.
In Coach Jackson's final campaign, the Fighting Irish are off to a solid 5-3 start. After splitting a home series with the surprisingly struggling Wisconsin Badgers last weekend, the Irish this weekend will travel to Yost Arena to face the fierce number 7 Michigan Wolverines. Let's start off with Game 1 against the Wisconsin Badgers last Friday night. 7 minutes into the first period, Henry Nelson one-timed a beautiful pass from his brother, who did it from Gretzky's office. Some great family chemistry. This put the Irish up 1-0, and they would hold this lead until there were 5 minutes left in the second period, and Ryan Bottrelli scored on a beautiful snipe from the blue line to tie the game. About 3 minutes later, capping off some efficient passing down the ice, Wisconsin's captain, Lindmark, rushed right up to the crease and buried a beautiful puck home, putting the Badgers up 2-1. But 30 seconds later, the Irish delivered a beautiful response with Brendan Ali deflecting a beautiful slapper from Axel Kumlin. There was no scoring in the third period, bringing up overtime, where Cole Kubel, with a patient and precise wrister, ended the night for the Irish and completed the comeback against the Badgers. For night 2, the Irish put on their gold pants for another fierce showing with the Badgers. There was no scoring in the first or the third period. All of the goals for the game happened in the second period. The first one, 5 minutes into the period, following an on-point pass from Kyle Kukkonen, Owen Lindmark put the Badgers up 1-0. About a little over halfway through the second period, Ryan Halliwell took a pass from Kunable and put a precise wrister in the bag and put the Irish back in a deadlock with the Wisconsin Badgers. The game winner for the Badgers came with 35 seconds left in the second period on the power play and after a lot of time in the Irish zone. After number 13 Fitzgerald posted his last shot, Fitzgerald delivered a beauty of a shot, which Simon Tassi redirected to put the Badgers up 2-1, and this would be the final score. Looking forward to next week. Right now, number 7 Michigan and number 20 Notre Dame have near identical records, with the Wolverines being 5-2-1 and Notre Dame being 5-3. After a questionable start, with the Wolverines losing 5-2 to Minnesota State and losing 0-4 to number 13 St. Cloud State at home, the Wolverines reasserted themselves coming off a sweep against number 5 Boston University in Boston. Some players who will be vital for the Irish to pull off the upset against the number 7 Michigan Wolverines. Cole Kubel, certainly no sophomore slump for him as he has taken the reins of the Irish after the departure of Lance Slager. He has had 6 goals and 6 assists in 8 games. His point total, 12 points, being number 16 in the entire country. Then goalie Owen Fay looks to be the next Ryan Bishop, with only 7 goals allowed in 5 games played, with a 0.960 save percentage, 4th best in the country, and a 1.40 goals against average, which is number 9th in the entire country. Overall, if the Irish can at least split the series in Yost Arena, the Young Irish will solidify themselves as true contenders for one final tournament run for Coach Jackson.
Thanks so much, Kian. Irish at Michigan tonight and tomorrow night. Also thanks to Avery and Shannon for that great update on all the news around Irish sports. Back here in the NDTV studio with Jacob Irons and Jimmy Collins, I'm Ryan Murphy. We're going to go back to some discussion about the CFP rankings. We kind of talked about how they relate to Notre Dame's season the rest of the way. Also some implications, though, for the other teams that were ranked as well. Let's start with this, guys. You guys have both done the prep work. You've picked out a couple teams currently in the rankings that you don't think are going to be there by the time the final selection made. Who you guys got?
I think I got a team right now that won't even be there by the time we hit Sunday. I think Alabama loses tomorrow against LSU. I think BK is going to have his guys up. This is an Alabama team that lost to Diego Pavia. Yes, he's the #1 quarterback that got dog in him. I get that. I understand that. I get it. But, like, it's Vandy. I love Clark Lee. I think he's a great guy. So happy for him to be able to do what he does down at Vandy and how he was able to work this upset. I just think this is an Alabama team that's not like a Nick Saban Alabama team. I understand Kalen DeBoer. This is the guy that you really thought was going to be your guy. I think this Alabama team with 2 losses, putting them in was already a question. Then to keep them in if they get a third, I would have a lot of question marks. I think they get a third and it shores up. Crimson Tide is waving their way back to shore.
Yeah, I do like that prediction. I'm going to go with BYU, who's currently in the 4 slot right now.
Yeah.
They're ranked 9th in the country, slightly above Notre Dame. And I do think that they could win out, but I do think Iowa State is going to win the Big 12. But I also don't want to overlook the holy war this weekend between BYU and Utah. They haven't played in 3 years. I think this is... Utah's been struggling this year. They're sitting at 4-4, but I do think that this is a sneaky tough matchup.
And it's always an electric game between BYU and Utah too. I always feel like that's what I'm constantly looking forward to, just because the crowd atmosphere, right?
Yeah, it's a big crowd atmosphere, a big game for the state of Utah, pretty similar to the Michigan State game for me back home. I do think that although Utah has really, really struggled this year, I really do think that they could catch BYU sleeping, which would pretty much knock BYU out of the college football playoff.
I challenge, but...
You guys are always challenging each other, though. I do have to say, to Jimmy's credit, I was going back through some of our predictions we made at the beginning of the season.
We don't need to give him any more
I'm just saying, Jimmy had 9 of 12 in his original bracket are in this this edition, this first edition of the CFP rankings. So we'll see how it is by the end of the season. But pretty good rate so far.
Were there any really bad ones? I don't really.
I don't remember. I think.
I know. I put Clemson in.
Clemson was in, and they're out. I think you had Ole Miss maybe, and they're not currently. So you're not missing by. You're not
missing by much though.
Yeah.
1 losses.
Yeah, we'll be taking notes on this as well, and we'll also be taking notes on the second question here. Who do you guys have that are outside the rankings right now that you can see making the final CFP?
I think Iowa State does. I think they come back with vengeance. It's going to be a big test this weekend. how they really handle themselves after their Texas Tech loss, which then kicked them around a little bit. But I think Iowa State has shown that they can win. It's not going to be pretty. They showed this against this USCF team that it wasn't going to be pretty up until the final minute, but they still found ways to win. And I think you have to be rewarded for finding ways to win, and you will be rewarded at conference championship time if you know how to win. Iowa State knows how to win. The Cyclones will get rolling. They'll be in there. I think it's a question of whether BYU then gets in, because I think Iowa State wins the Big 12 and they get their auto bid.
Yeah, I also like that pick. I was kind of hinting in the pick before that I do think that Iowa State will beat BYU in the Big 12 championship game, which will give them a top 4 seed. I'm gonna take it to the ACC. I think SMU.
This is the greatest pick.
Is going to beat Miami in the ACC championship game. SMU ranked about right around 14 right now. I do think that this SMU team can score it well, and I think it's just such a good matchup for them against a Miami team that seemingly can't stop anyone. Obviously, a very exciting offense for Miami with Cam Ward, but I do think that this SMU team will put enough pressure on Miami, who will not be able to stop them, and I think that SMU is going to win the ACC and find their way into the college football playoff.
And on top of this, you add in SMU winning the conference in their first year after conference realignment, and everyone gropes and moans about conference realignment. SMU would be a prime example of why you want that to happen, to go level up, because they are leveling up. They leveled up their competition, and they've shown that they have been able to respond.
Take one thing away from the show today, it's that we here at Notre Dame are big fans of the Pony Express.
Pony Express, baby. Get aboard.
Another thing we're a big fan of, Shambuki. And we'll be back with Shambuki right after this short break.
Welcome to Shamrock Sports. My name is Tyler Reedy, joined alongside Avery White and Cooper Van Driesch. And hey, we've got a great show on tap today as the anticipation is building, with Notre Dame football set to take the field once again tomorrow.
I know. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Notre Dame offensive line comes out.
Check up. Let's go.
That position group will be critical for the Irish.
Hey! That's and one. That's and one.
Hey, I hate to be that guy, but we're kind of in the middle of something here. It's pretty important.
We know you guys want to play too. I mean, we need 3 more.
3 more?
Yeah, I've been waiting for this. Come on.
All right, we are back here for our favorite time of the show. It is Shambuki time. Guys, I'm just going to kick us off, go right into it.
Let's do it.
Because I know you guys, some things you agree on, some things you disagree on. We'll get there, though. My pick, I got Army. They're -4 favorites on the road at North Texas this year. I was just perusing through the lines this week, and that one seems, as a Notre Dame fan, maybe a little bit too low. I got Army covering and then some at North Texas. I think Army's a good team. I think they're going to give Notre Dame a challenge for the first half in a couple weeks at Yankee Stadium. I'd like to see them be undefeated coming into that game. I think they got not only a chance, but they're going to do that by beating North Texas tomorrow. So give me the Black Knights.
I like that pick. That's a Black Knights team that's coming off a stomping of Air Force, who puts themselves in prime contention to win the Commanders-in-Chief trophy this year. I like that Black Knights team. However, I like another team. We talk about the state of Florida. Oh my gosh, everything's going wrong in the state of Florida football. One thing is starting to go a little bit right, and it is Florida. I think Florida has found themselves a little bit. Yes, Gators. I think they are finding themselves a little bit at a right time. Plus 21.5 versus Texas, I think is just too much. I don't think they win this game. There's no way they win. I think they just cover the 21.5. That's a lot of points to give to a Florida team that played Georgia close just last week at a neutral site in Jacksonville. I think this is a very strong Florida team that already has committed themselves to Billy Napier for next year in 2025. I think there's a Florida team that wants to show that, hey, we understand, we are improving. And what Billy Napier has done with backup after backup in almost every position is impressive. I really applaud Florida for sticking with their guy and understanding it. But give me the Gators.
Not so fast, my friend. I am taking Texas -21.5 against Florida.
This is targeted now at this point.
It's a 3-touchdown spread. That's a huge spread, and your analysis was okay, but this is a very, very good Texas team. They didn't play.
Very good. Hold on, timeout. Dude, we were all watching Georgia, Texas.
Georgia's also a very good team.
Oh my goodness.
Georgia is a very good team. Georgia, on the other hand, they messed around in the first half against Bama. They should have beaten Alabama this season. But Texas, coming off of a bye week, Florida committing to Billy Napier. Now he doesn't really have anything to worry about. He can get stomped by Texas. I think Texas covers this spread and some. I think they win by 35 to 40 points this weekend. And I think coming off of a bye and a big win, after a tough loss to Georgia, they get a big win on the road at Vanderbilt.
Whoa,
they get a bye week.
Big win is like that is like whoa.
That's a ranked.
We're using adjectives here, like I don't know. Here.
That's a ranked win. Ranked wins are big.
Win, but like Vandy, like I love Vandy. I love Clark Lea. I want this to be very much known. But
Vandy beat Alabama.
They did beat Alabama. Yeah, that's okay.
I will say, Jake. I will say, you are one of the few pundits that's defending Billy Napier.
Yeah.
I understand this.
I think you might be the only person in the country besides Florida.
Besides the Florida, yeah.
Stick with your guy. I like it. Make your decision.
Yeah,
hold up to it.
Texas by 40, and we'll see you at the counter.
Another coach that will he will be facing a lot of questions this offseason is Mike Norvell.
Yeah.
And his club will be at Notre Dame Stadium tomorrow to take on the Fighting Irish. We already broke down the game a little bit. We'll be back on the other side of this break with our score predictions. Will it be a 40 or will it be maybe less so? Parallels to the Texas-Florida pick. We'll be back with our score picks right after this.
Hey Irish, if you want to hear the news from campus this week, watch some exciting segments, or learn about this coming weekend's campus events, make sure to tune in to ND Sunrise, which airs every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on the NDTV YouTube channel.
All right, after a rare head-to-head Shambuki, we go head-to-head with score picks. Again, I'll get us started really quick right here. I think Notre Dame's going to, frankly, wipe the floor with Florida State tomorrow. I think the point that we made, particularly you guys made earlier in the show, this is a Florida State team that's coming in demoralized. And we've seen that the mental game matters potentially more than anything. We've seen that in that very stadium so far this year. I would say Notre Dame wasn't the more mentally prepared team coming into NIU. I would say they probably are the more mentally prepared team coming into Florida State, despite the fact that there is the opportunity to kind of be sleeping on the Seminoles. I still think, based on the way that things seem coming out of the Seminole locker room this year, that it's not a good state right now. So give me the Irish 42-10 tomorrow.
I like that pick. I think it's a really solid pick. I understand that. I understand anyone picking.
Is that a butt I hear coming?
There's a butt. I understand everyone and their mom picking Notre Dame. I get it. I do. I understand it. I love you. But I have problems with it. I have sat up here on my soapbox, and I have fallen on my face time and time again. Clemson, NIU, Stanford, Marshall. Every time I have found the way to really jive in and be like, this is a game that Notre Dame has showed me. I have every right to pick Notre Dame after what they showed against Navy, against a really solid Navy football team, and why they've shown development. I just can't. I'm a senior here. I am scarred. The precedent has been set. I just don't think Notre Dame can find their way to walk away without another oopsie loss. Give me this one. I think they lose 21-20. Florida State and the Seminoles go chomping.
So you're picking the Seminoles because of trauma?
Yes, trauma. It's a trauma pick. I think I wrote this in our game notes that we have before. I think it's only a 10%. I think it's a 10%.
You think Notre Dame wins this game 90% of the time?
I do. Okay. I think there's only 10%, but I think there's a potential. There's a really strong potential that 10% happens tomorrow.
Interesting logic.
I know. I'm interested.
I think if someone came to me and offered me $1 million, but said the only way I could take it is if I talked to someone for 5 minutes and they were negative about Notre Dame football, in that 5 minutes I could have $1 million, I would most definitely go to Jake Irons. I am taking Notre Dame to win 38-7. I think they're going to run the ball. I think they're going to push 300 yards. I think Riley will push 100 with his legs, and I think we will see a lot of the younger backs like Aeneas Williams and Keidron Young late in the game, and I think Notre Dame wins, covers, and celebrates a big night game win.
What's the line?
The line is about 27.
I think that's a very solid line that you can take.
So you have Notre Dame losing, but if they win, over.
Yeah, I think this is handed. There's like
Interesting logic.
it's either really
It
close.
makes sense.
Makes sense.
It's a close Florida State win, or Notre Dame wipes the floor, and we might be done by halftime.
Over?
Like the cover of the spread?
Yes.
Yes, I think Notre Dame covers the spread.
We'll find out. Kickoff is 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Jimmy Collins, Jacob Irons, Ryan Murphy here with Shamrock Sports, breaking it all down for you. Thanks for spending some of your Friday afternoon with us. Thanks to all our crew in the back who did a wonderful job with this show. Thanks also to our alums, JJ Post and Kieran Cantwell, in the house today, taking in Shamrock Sports. We appreciate you guys stopping by, and all our viewers.
Please view, please, I ask.
All of our viewers are
our
big
families.
fan base.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and go Irish.